At Sunday dinner, Mom stood up, walked to my plate, and spit directly into my food. "Now it tastes like your personality," she announced. Everyone clapped. My sister pulled out her phone to record the aftermath. But when I calmly stood and left, she followed me outside and whispered, "Maya, don't go home yet. There's something you need to see first." My name is Maya Chen. I'm 32 years old. And if you think this story ends with family applause and public humiliation, you have no idea what's coming. Before we dive back in, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if this story resonates with you, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is something truly special I can't wait to share. It was supposed to be a normal Sunday dinner at the Riverside Inn, a tradition my family had kept for over a decade. My mother, Patricia, insisted on these gatherings. She called them family bonding, but everyone knew they were really stages for her performances. My father, Richard, sat at the head of the table, nodding along to whatever she said. My older sister, Vivian, was there with her husband Marcus, already 3 glasses of wine deep. My younger brother, Derek, scrolled through his phone, pretending not to notice the tension that always simmered beneath these meals. I'd driven 2 hours from Clearwater to be here, leaving my daughter Emma with a babysitter. At 8 years old, she was old enough to notice when Grandma was cruel, and I'd stopped subjecting her to these dinners months ago. I told myself this time would be different. That maybe, just maybe, Mom would acknowledge the promotion I'd earned at the marketing firm. That she'd congratulate me instead of comparing me to Vivian's, more stable, career as a dental hygienist. But I should have known better. The meal started pleasantly enough. Dad talked about his golf game. Marcus complained about property taxes. Vivian showed everyone photos from their recent vacation to Sedona. I waited for my turn, my good news sitting on my tongue like a stone I couldn't swallow. Then Mom turned to me, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Maya, darling, you've been awfully quiet. Still struggling at that little agency of yours?" The table went silent. I felt every eye shift to me. "Actually," I said carefully, "I got promoted last month. I'm now Senior Creative Director. It comes with a significant raise and—" "How nice," Mom interrupted, her tone dripping with dismissal. "Though I suppose they'll promote anyone these days just to fill quotas." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "What's that supposed to mean?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be so sensitive. I'm just saying that some people work hard for their positions, while others—" She let the sentence hang, her meaning crystal clear. Vivian snorted into her wine glass. Derek's thumb stopped scrolling. Dad said nothing, as usual. I took a breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "Mom, I worked 12-hour days for that promotion. I brought in 3 major clients this quarter alone. My work speaks for itself." "Does it?" She leaned back in her chair, eyebrows raised. "Because from what I hear, your boss had to choose between you and that other candidate." "What was her name?" "Jennifer? The one with the Ivy League degree?" My stomach dropped. How did she know about Jennifer? It took a lot of care and time to prepare and narrate this for you, so if you're enjoying it, a quick subscribe really helps and means the world to us. Alright, let's get back to it. "I see you're surprised," Mom continued, clearly enjoying herself. "Did you think I wouldn't do my research? I called your office last week. Had a lovely chat with your receptionist. She told me all about how the decision was very close. How some people thought Jennifer was more qualified." The blood drained from my face. She'd called my workplace. She'd been digging into my career, trying to find ammunition. "That's incredibly inappropriate," I said, my voice shaking now. "You had no right." "I have every right to know what my daughter is doing with her life," she snapped. "Especially when she's clearly delusional about her accomplishments." Something inside me cracked. Years of this. Years of being diminished, criticized, compared. Years of watching her praise Vivian's mediocrity while tearing down my successes. "You know what, Mom?" I said, setting down my fork with deliberate care. I'm done. I'm done defending myself to you. I'm done coming to these dinners just to be your punching bag. That's when she did it. Mom stood up, walked around the table with purposeful strides, picked up my water glass, took a sip, and then leaned over my plate. She spit directly onto my chicken parmesan, the saliva glistening under the restaurant's ambient lighting. Now it tastes like your personality, she said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. Bitter and hard to swallow. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Vivian started clapping. Slowly at first, then faster. Marcus joined in, laughing. Derek looked up from his phone and actually smiled before adding his applause. Dad cleared his throat but said nothing, his silence its own form of approval. Other diners turned to stare. A server froze mid-step. The clapping spread, not from strangers, but from my own family, celebrating my humiliation like it was dinner theater. I stood up. My chair scraped against the hardwood floor, the sound cutting through the applause. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I simply grabbed my purse and walked toward the exit, my spine straight, my face carefully blank. The cool evening air hit me like a slap when I pushed through the restaurant doors. My hands were shaking, adrenaline flooding my system. I fumbled for my car keys, desperate to leave before the tears came. Maya, wait. I turned to see Vivian rushing out behind me, her expression strange. Not mocking anymore, but urgent. Almost frightened. What do you want? I asked coldly. Did Mom send you out here to twist the knife some more? No, Vivian said, glancing back at the restaurant nervously. Listen, I know that was messed up in there, but you need to not go straight home. I stared at her. Excuse me? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I'm serious, Maya. There's something at your house. Something you need to see before. She stopped, biting her lip. Just trust me on this. Drive somewhere else first. Go to Emma's babysitter. Go to a coffee shop. Anywhere but home for the next hour. My heart started pounding for a different reason now. Vivian, what are you talking about? What's at my house? She shook her head, already backing toward the restaurant. I can't explain. Not here. Just, don't go home yet. Please. Before I could respond, she disappeared back inside, leaving me standing alone in the parking lot under the yellow glow of street lamps. My phone buzzed in my purse. An unknown number. The text message made my blood run cold. Ms. Chen, this is Detective Rachel Torres from Clearwater Police Department. We need you to contact us immediately regarding your residence. Do not enter your home until we've spoken. My hands started shaking harder. I looked back at the restaurant, where my family was probably still laughing at my expense, then down at my phone. Whatever Vivian knew, whatever was happening at my house, it was connected to this dinner. To Mom's performance. To the humiliation I just endured. This wasn't random cruelty. This was calculated. And suddenly, the spitting, the insults, the public degradation, it all felt like a distraction. A show meant to keep me in that restaurant while something else happened elsewhere. I dialed Detective Torres with trembling fingers, my mind racing through possibilities, none of them good. The call connected. A professional female voice answered. Ms. Chen? Yes, I whispered. What's happening at my house? There was a pause, then, I need you to come to the station. We have a situation, and I think you'll want to see this in person. The parking lot seemed to tilt beneath my feet. In the restaurant window, I could see my family still seated at the table, Mom gesturing animatedly, probably recounting her victory. But as I stood there in the darkness, phone pressed to my ear, I realized something fundamental had shifted. This wasn't the end of my humiliation. It was the beginning of something far worse, or possibly, far better. I started my car and drove toward the police station, leaving my family and their applause behind in the rearview mirror. The Clearwater police station felt sterile and cold, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like anxious insects. I'd been sitting in a small conference room for 10 minutes, watching the clock tick forward while my mind spun through 1,000 terrible possibilities. What could possibly be at my house that required police intervention? Detective Rachel Torres finally entered, carrying a tablet and a manila folder. She was in her early 40s, sharp-eyed, with dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Behind her came a younger officer, introduced as Officer Bennett. "Ms. Chen," Detective Torres said, sitting across from me. "Thank you for coming in so quickly. I know this must be confusing." "Confusing doesn't begin to cover it," I said, my voice tight. "What's going on at my house? Is Emma okay?" "Her babysitter." "Your daughter is fine," Torres assured me quickly. "We contacted Mrs. Hoffman, the babysitter. She and Emma are safe at her residence and will remain there until we sort this out." Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by fresh anxiety. Then what? At approximately 6:15 this evening, Torres interrupted gently. "Mrs. Hoffman called 911. She reported hearing sounds from inside your home, specifically from your attic. Breaking glass, footsteps, someone moving around." My stomach dropped. Someone was in my house while Emma was there? "Not exactly," Officer Bennett interjected. "Mrs. Hoffman had taken Emma to the park down the street, as she does every Sunday evening. When they returned around 6 o'clock, she heard the noises. She immediately took Emma back to her house and called us." Torres slid a photo across the table. It showed my front door, perfectly intact. There was no forced entry. No broken windows on the ground floor. No signs of a typical break-in. "Then how?" I started, but Torres held up a hand. "When officers arrived, they found your attic access panel open. The pull-down stairs were extended. Someone had definitely been up there." She pulled out another photo, this one showing my attic entrance in the hallway ceiling, the folding stairs dangling down. Officers conducted a sweep. The intruder had left by the time they arrived, but they left something behind. She opened the manila folder and spread several photos across the table. My breath caught. The photos showed my attic, a space I rarely used except for holiday decorations and old boxes. But now it was different. Someone had gone through everything. Boxes were opened, contents strewn across the floor. Christmas ornaments mixed with old photo albums. Emma's baby clothes scattered like confetti. "We found evidence that someone spent considerable time up there," Torres continued. "At least an hour, possibly more. They were searching for something specific." "How do you know?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Officer Bennett spoke up. "Because of what they left behind." He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. "We found this on top of one of your storage boxes." It was a handwritten note on expensive cream-colored stationery. The kind my mother used for her personal correspondence. I'd recognize that paper anywhere. She ordered it custom from a boutique in Charleston. The note read, "23 years buried won't stay buried forever. Last chance to make this right before everyone knows what you are." My hands started trembling. "I don't understand. What does this mean?" Torres watched me carefully. "Ms. Chen, we were hoping you could tell us. Do you have any idea what someone might be searching for in your attic? Any documents, objects, or information that someone might want?" I shook my head, mind racing. "I don't keep anything valuable up there. Just seasonal decorations, old baby items, some photo albums from college." I stopped suddenly. "What is it?" Torres leaned forward. "There are boxes," I said slowly. "Boxes my grandmother left me when she died 5 years ago. I never went through most of them. They're still sealed, just sitting up there. I kept meaning to sort through them, but life got busy and I just forgot about them." Torres and Bennett exchanged a glance. "Do you know what's in those boxes?" "Not really. Grandma Lily lived in Meadowbrook her whole life. When she passed, my mother packed up her things. She gave me several boxes, said they were things Grandma wanted me to have. Photo albums, her jewelry, some old letters. I looked through one box briefly, mostly pictures and her recipe cards, but the others. I trailed off, feeling foolish. I never opened them. And your mother packed these boxes? Torres asked, her tone sharpening slightly. Yes. Why? Instead of answering, Torres pulled out her tablet and turned it to face me. Miss Chen, we pulled surveillance footage from your neighbor's Ring doorbell. The camera faces the street but catches part of your driveway. She tapped play. The video showed a silver Lexus SUV pulling into my driveway at 5:47 p.m. My heart sank. I recognized that car immediately. It was Vivian's. I watched as my sister got out, looked around nervously, then walked to my front door. She pulled out a key, my spare key, the one I'd given her for emergencies, and let herself in. 3 minutes later, the attic access panel would have been opened. Your sister had a key, Torres stated. Did you give her permission to enter your home today? No, I whispered. But that's Vivian. She wouldn't, I stopped, remembering her strange behavior in the parking lot. Her warning not to go home. The fear in her eyes. Torres swiped to the next video. At 6:12 p.m., Vivian emerged from my house, empty-handed, looking frustrated and angry. She got in her car and drove away quickly. For minutes later, Mrs. Hoffman and Emma would return from the park and hear the noises. Wait, I said, confusion mounting. If Vivian left at 6:12, who was still in my attic at 6:15? Exactly, Torres said grimly. She swiped to another video. This one was timestamped 6:14 p.m. and showed a man I'd never seen before climbing out of my second-floor window, the one in the spare bedroom that connected to the attic crawl space. He was wearing dark clothes and a baseball cap, but the angle caught his face clearly. He was in his 50s, rough-looking, with a graying beard. Do you know this man? Bennett asked. I shook my head, staring at the stranger who'd been in my home. Never seen him before in my life. Torres pulled out another photo. We ran facial recognition. His name is Carl Winters. He's a private investigator based in Charleston. Specializes in asset recovery, missing persons, and... She paused meaningfully, family investigations. Charleston. Where my mother lived. Where my grandmother had lived her entire life. Someone hired a private investigator to break into my house, I said, the reality sinking in like stones in water. It appears that way, Torres confirmed. We're working on getting Mr. Winters' phone records and client list, but that takes time. However, she pulled out one more photo. We did find something interesting. After processing your attic, our crime scene team discovered this had been recently moved. The photo showed one of Grandma Lily's sealed boxes, the one at the very back of the attic, pushed behind the Christmas tree. The packing tape had been cut, the flaps partially opened, then hastily closed again. Whatever they were looking for, Torres said, we believe it's in that box. Or was supposed to be. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, you should have stayed at dinner longer. Now it's too late. I showed the message to Torres, my hands shaking. She immediately had Bennett start a trace on the number. Miss Chen, Torres said carefully, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Your family dinner tonight, the incident with your mother, can you walk me through exactly what happened? So I told her. The spitting, the insults, the applause. My mother's cruelty. Vivian's strange warning in the parking lot. When I finished, Torres was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I don't think your mother's behavior at dinner was random cruelty. I think it was strategic. She needed you at that restaurant, visible, in front of witnesses, while your home was being searched. The pieces started clicking together in my mind. The whole dinner was a setup. Mom picked a fight to keep me there. To humiliate me publicly so I'd be too upset to leave quickly. So I'd stay and argue, or cry, or make a scene. While someone searched your attic, Torres finished. But here's what doesn't make sense. Your sister and this Carl Winters were both in your house, apparently at the same time, but they didn't seem to be working together. The ring footage shows your sister looking frustrated when she left, like she didn't find what she wanted. But Winters stayed longer, kept searching. Two different people looking for the same thing, I murmured. Bennett returned from making calls. Detective, the number that just texted Miss Chen? It's a burner phone, but it pinged off a tower near the Riverside Inn. The restaurant. Someone at that dinner had sent the message. Torres stood up. Miss Chen, I'm going to need you to come with us to your house. We need you to go through that opened box and tell us if anything is missing. And then. She paused. I think we need to have a conversation with your family about what exactly they're looking for. As we walked to the parking lot, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Vivian calling. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message as we drove. Maya, I'm so sorry. I didn't know he'd be there too. Mom lied to me. She said the box would be easy to find, that you'd never notice it missing. But he. Maya, call me back. Please. Before Mom finds out what's actually in there. It's not what she thinks. It's so much worse. I looked at Detective Torres as we pulled up to my house, police tape already stretched across the front door. I think, I said slowly, my grandmother left me something my mother desperately doesn't want anyone to find. Then let's find out what it is, Torres replied, handing me a pair of latex gloves. The attic felt different now, violated. With Torres and Bennett watching, I approached the opened box. Inside were layers of yellowed papers, old photographs, and at the very bottom, a leather journal with my grandmother's name embossed on the cover. But tucked into the journal's pages was something that made my blood run cold, a birth certificate from 1976. A birth certificate for a baby girl named Patricia Marie Sterling, my mother's name, but the parents listed weren't the grandparents I'd known. And clipped to it was a sealed envelope marked, "To Maya, when you're ready to know the truth about your mother's past." My hands shook as I held it up to the light. Detective Torres stepped closer. I whispered, I just found out why my mother has been trying to destroy me my entire life. The sealed envelope felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my hands. Detective Torres watched me carefully, her expression neutral but alert. Officer Bennett had his notebook ready, pen poised. Miss Chen, Torres said gently, before you open that, I need to remind you that this is now part of an active investigation. Whatever's inside could be evidence. Are you comfortable opening it here, with us present? I nodded, unable to speak. My grandmother's handwriting was on the envelope, that familiar looping script I'd seen on birthday cards and Christmas letters my whole life. The envelope was sealed with wax, Grandma Lily's old-fashioned way, stamped with her initial, L. I broke the seal carefully and pulled out several folded pages. The paper was thick, expensive, the kind Grandma used for important correspondence. My hands trembled as I unfolded the first page and began to read aloud, my voice barely above a whisper. My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're finally old enough to understand. I've carried this secret for 49 years, and it has poisoned everything it touched. Your mother doesn't know I kept these documents. She thinks I destroyed them decades ago, as she demanded. But some truths are too important to burn. I paused, glancing at Torres, who nodded for me to continue. In 1976, your mother was born in a county hospital in Ashwood, 3 hours from Meadowbrook. She wasn't born to me and your grandfather, Thomas. She was born to a 16-year-old girl named Catherine Walsh and a married man named Robert Chen. Yes, Maya, the same surname you carry now, though the connection is more complicated than you know. My breath caught. Chen was my married name, taken from my ex-husband David. The coincidence seemed impossible. Catherine Walsh was the daughter of the town minister in Ashwood. When she became pregnant, her family was horrified. The man responsible, Robert Chen, was a prominent businessman, married with 2 sons. He refused to leave his family. Catherine's parents gave her 2 choices: have the baby in secret and give it up for adoption, or be disowned entirely. Catherine chose a third option. She ran away. I had to stop reading, my vision blurring with tears. Torres handed me a tissue. She came to Meadowbrook, I continued, 7 months pregnant, with nothing but a suitcase and desperation. I found her sleeping in my garden shed one morning in April. She was so young, Maya. Just a child herself, terrified and alone. Your grandfather and I took her in. We told our neighbors she was my distant niece, visiting for the summer. The pages rustled in my shaking hands as I turned to the next one. Catherine gave birth in our home on June 3, 1976. No hospital, no official records at first. We planned to help her get back on her feet, help her raise the baby or arrange for a proper adoption. But 3 days after the birth, Catherine's father found her. He was a cruel man, Maya. He told Catherine she was an abomination, that the baby was cursed, that God would never forgive her sin. And then he told her that Robert Chen, the baby's father, had paid him $5,000 to make the problem disappear permanently. I stopped breathing. Torres leaned forward. Catherine panicked. That night, she tried to run again, but she was weak from childbirth, bleeding, not thinking clearly. She made it half a mile before she collapsed on Route 17. A truck driver found her the next morning. She died in the hospital without ever holding her baby again. Tears were streaming down my face now. Officer Bennett had stopped taking notes, just listening. The authorities came asking questions. Catherine's father claimed she'd been mentally unstable, that he'd been trying to help her. Robert Chen denied everything, denied the affair, denied the pregnancy, denied he'd paid anyone anything. And Maya, I made a choice I've regretted every day since. I told the authorities that the baby was mine. That I'd given birth to her in secret because of medical complications. Your grandfather supported the lie. We filed a delayed birth certificate listing us as Patricia's parents. My mother. The baby was my mother. We raised Patricia as our own daughter. We never told her the truth about Catherine or Robert Chen. We thought we were protecting her, giving her a normal life free from the stigma of her real origins. But Patricia was always different. Angry. Suspicious. She didn't look like us, didn't act like us. As she grew older, she became convinced we were hiding something. When she was 17, she found a photograph of Catherine in my drawer. The resemblance was unmistakable. I flipped to the next page, my hands numb. Patricia demanded the truth. I was weak, Maya. I told her everything, about Catherine, about Robert Chen, about the lie on her birth certificate. I thought honesty would help her understand, would bring us closer. Instead, it destroyed her. She became obsessed with Robert Chen, with claiming what she believed was her rightful inheritance. She tracked him down in Charleston. By then, he was elderly, wealthy, and dying. His legitimate sons, your mother's half-brothers, wanted nothing to do with her. They called her a fraud, said their father had already denied paternity decades ago. The writing on the next page was shakier, as if Grandma Lily had been crying as she wrote. Robert Chen died in 1995 without ever acknowledging Patricia. His sons inherited everything. Patricia blamed me for her rejection. She said if I'd told the truth from the beginning, if there had been proper documentation, she could have proven her claim. She said I'd stolen her birthright by making her legally my daughter instead of Catherine's. She was wrong, Maya. Robert Chen would never have acknowledged her regardless. But Patricia couldn't accept that. I turned to the final page. Your mother married your father Richard when she was 23. I thought marriage would settle her, give her the family she'd always wanted. But Patricia carried her rage like an inheritance itself. She became obsessed with legitimacy, with appearances, with controlling narratives. She had to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect daughter, to prove she deserved the life Robert Chen denied her. And anyone who threatened that perfect image became her enemy. My hands were shaking so violently now that Torres gently took the pages from me to read the final paragraph aloud. Maya, I'm leaving you these documents because I've watched your mother turn her pain into poison. I've watched her tear you down the way the world tore her down. The birth certificate, Catherine's death certificate, the private investigator's report I commissioned in 1994 proving the connection to Robert Chen, they're all here. I'm also leaving you the trust fund Robert Chen's guilty conscience created before he died. He left it to any biological children of Catherine Walsh, managed through a law firm in Charleston. He never told his sons. The lawyers have been searching for Catherine's child for 30 years. Patricia doesn't know about it because she was never legally Catherine's child, only mine. But you, Maya, as Patricia's daughter and Catherine's granddaughter, are the rightful heir. The trust is now worth $3.2 million. The attic went completely silent except for my ragged breathing. Torres set down the pages carefully. Ms. Chen, do you understand what this means? I nodded slowly, pieces falling into place like dominoes. My mother has been looking for these documents. She must have found out about the trust funds somehow. If she could prove her biological connection to Catherine Walsh and Robert Chen, she could claim the money. But the documents Grandma kept prove that Mom was legally adopted by her, not Catherine's biological daughter on record. The birth certificate shows Grandma Lily as the mother, not Catherine. Which means, Bennett said quietly, your mother can't claim the inheritance. But you can. And that's why she's been trying to find these papers, Torres added. If she destroys them, there's no proof of the trust fund's existence or the connection to Robert Chen. She can't claim the money, but neither can you. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. Tell Detective Torres that breaking and entering charges can go both ways. Families should keep their secrets buried where they belong. I showed it to Torres, whose jaw tightened. That sounds like a threat. It is, I said, my voice stronger now. My mother sent Carl Winters to find these documents and destroy them. But she also sent Vivian, probably as backup or to make sure Winters didn't keep anything for himself. She's been planning this. Bennett's phone rang. He stepped away to answer it, then returned with a grim expression. Detective, we just got Carl Winters' phone records. He received 3 calls today from a number registered to Patricia Chen, the suspect's mother. The last call was at 5:42 p.m., 13 minutes before he entered the residence. Torres stood up, her professional mask firmly in place. Ms. Chen, I need to ask, do you want to press charges against your mother for conspiracy to commit breaking and entering, attempted theft, and witness intimidation? I looked down at my grandmother's letter, at the birth certificate that had cost Catherine Walsh her life, at the documents that explained 32 years of my mother's cruelty. My mother hadn't just been mean. She'd been terrified that I would somehow discover the truth, discover the money, discover that I had a claim to something she believed was rightfully hers. Every insult, every degradation, every public humiliation had been designed to keep me small, keep me doubting myself, keep me from ever questioning our family history. The spitting incident at dinner hadn't been random cruelty. It had been desperation. She'd needed me distracted, emotional, focused on my humiliation while her hired investigator ransacked my attic. Yes, I said firmly. I want to press charges. All of them. Torres nodded. Then we need to bring your mother in for questioning. Bennett, call for backup. Ms. Chen, I'm going to need you to stay here while we secure these documents as evidence. And I'm going to need contact information for the law firm in Charleston that manages the trust fund. As Bennett made calls and Torres photographed each document, I sat in my violated attic, surrounded by the detritus of my grandmother's secrets and my mother's desperation. My phone rang. It was my father. Maya, his voice was tight, stressed. Your mother said there's been some kind of misunderstanding. She wants to talk to you, just the two of you, no police. She says she can explain everything. Tell her, I said clearly, that the only conversation we'll be having is at the police station with Detective Torres present. And Dad? You might want to get a lawyer. For both of you. I hung up before he could respond. Torres looked at me with something like respect. That must have been difficult. No, I said, surprising myself. It was actually the easiest thing I've done in years. In the distance, I heard sirens approaching. Not for an emergency this time, but for justice that was 3 decades overdue. The interrogation room at Clearwater Police Station felt smaller than the conference room I'd sat in earlier. This time, I wasn't alone. My attorney, James Kirkland, sat beside me, his expensive suit and calm demeanor a shield I desperately needed. Across the table sat my mother, flanked by her own lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Andrea Sutton who kept whispering urgently in Mom's ear. Detective Torres stood by the door, arms crossed, watching everything with those sharp, assessing eyes. Officer Bennett sat at the end of the table with his recording equipment, the red light blinking steadily. It had been 4 hours since the documents were discovered. 4 hours since Carl Winters was arrested trying to leave the state. 4 hours since my world had been turned inside out by my grandmother's confession from beyond the grave. My mother looked different under the harsh fluorescent lights. Smaller somehow. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly as she clasped them on the table. But her eyes, those were the same. Hard. Calculating. Afraid. Patricia Chen, Torres began formally, you've been read your rights. You understand you're being questioned in connection with conspiracy to commit breaking and entering, attempted theft, witness intimidation, and destruction of evidence. Do you understand these charges? My client understands, Sutton interjected smoothly. However, we maintain that this is a family matter being criminalized due to misunderstandings and emotional reactions. I felt my jaw tighten. James placed a hand on my arm, a silent reminder to stay calm. Let's start with the facts, Torres continued, sliding a photo across the table. It showed Carl Winters climbing out of my bedroom window. This man, Carl Winters, was found inside Ms. Maya Chen's residence without permission at 6:14 p.m. today. Mr. Winters has already given a statement. He says you hired him 3 weeks ago to recover documents from your daughter's home. Documents you claimed were stolen from you. My mother's face remained impassive. I have no comment at this time. Torres pulled out another photo, the phone records. These show 3 calls from your cell phone to Mr. Winters today. The last one at 5:42 p.m., exactly 5 minutes before he entered the residence. What were you discussing? My client declines to answer, Sutton said quickly. Let me answer something then, I said, my voice cutting through the tension. James squeezed my arm in warning, but I continued. Mom, why did you do it? The dinner, the humiliation, hiring that man, was $3 million really worth destroying your own daughter? My mother's mask cracked, just for a second. Her eyes flashed with something raw and desperate. You don't understand what you're talking about. Then explain it to me, I pressed, leaning forward. Explain why you spit in my food. Why you've spent 32 years making me feel worthless. Why you hired a criminal to break into my home while my daughter was there. Ms. Chen, Sutton warned, but my mother held up a hand. You want an explanation? Mom's voice was low, shaking with barely controlled rage. Fine. You've always had everything handed to you, Maya. A good childhood, education, opportunities. You got to grow up knowing exactly who you were, where you came from. You got certainty. That's what this is about? I stared at her, incredulous. You're angry because I had a stable childhood? The childhood you and Dad gave me? The childhood that was stolen from me. Her voice rose sharply. Sutton touched her arm, but Mom yanked away. Do you know what it's like to find out your entire life is a lie? That the woman who raised you isn't your mother? That your real mother died alone on a highway, bleeding out while her father counted his blood money? The room went silent. Torres exchanged a glance with Bennett. Catherine Walsh, I said quietly. My grandmother told me everything. My mother's face went white. That's impossible. Lily said she destroyed. She stopped abruptly, realizing she'd just confirmed she knew about the documents. She didn't destroy them, I said. She kept them for me. Because she knew eventually I'd need the truth. Mom laughed, a bitter, broken sound. The truth. The truth is that I spent 20 years trying to claim what should have been mine. Robert Chen's sons had lawyers, money, power. They called me a liar, a gold digger. They said their father's word was enough, that DNA didn't matter because legally I was Lily Sterling's daughter, not Catherine Walsh's. So you gave up, I said. No. She slammed her hand on the table. I never gave up. I hired investigators, I searched records, I tried everything. And then your grandmother died, and I thought it was over. Until 6 months ago. Torres leaned forward. What happened 6 months ago? Mom hesitated, looking at her lawyer. Sutton shook her head firmly, but Mom seemed beyond caring now. I got a letter. From the law firm in Charleston. Morrison and Hayes. They said they'd been managing a trust fund for Catherine Walsh's biological descendants. They'd been searching for 30 years. They found me through genealogy databases, DNA testing websites. My stomach sank. You took a DNA test. Everyone does now, she said defensively. I thought maybe I could find distant relatives, build a case. Instead, I got a letter saying I was entitled to $3 million as Catherine Walsh's daughter. Finally, after all those years, proof that I was right. That Robert Chen's conscience ate at him enough to leave something behind. But there was a problem, Torres said. Mom's face hardened again. They needed documentation. Original birth certificates, death certificates, proof of lineage. They said the trust had specific legal requirements. I told them I'd been legally adopted, that my birth certificate listed Lily and Thomas Sterling as my parents. They said that complicated things, but if I could provide the original documentation showing Catherine Walsh as my biological mother, they could process the claim. Documentation your mother told you she destroyed, I said, understanding flooding through me. I tore apart her house after she died, Mom admitted. Every box, every drawer, every hiding place. Nothing. I thought maybe she really had destroyed it all. Then 2 months ago, I found a note in her safety deposit box. Just one line, the truth is with the one who deserves it most. She left it to me, I whispered. I didn't know for sure, Mom said quickly. I just knew you had boxes from her house. Things I'd packed up and given you, thinking they were just photos and recipes. I checked when you first got them, but I didn't find anything. I thought maybe I was wrong. But then last month, the law firm contacted me again. They said they'd found another heir through the DNA databases. A closer heir. Someone with a direct claim. Torres pulled out another document. They found Maya. Because she took a DNA test last year through that ancestry website, didn't you, Ms. Chen? I nodded slowly, remembering. Emma's school had a heritage project. We did it together, just for fun. The law firm sent you a letter too, Mom said, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. I saw it in your mailbox 3 weeks ago when I came to visit. You weren't home yet. I took it. James Kirkland sat up straighter. You stole your daughter's mail? I had to know what it said. Mom's composure was completely gone now. I opened it. They explained about the trust fund. They said as Patricia Chen's daughter and Catherine Walsh's granddaughter, you had the primary claim. They needed you to provide family documentation to process the inheritance. They gave you 30 days to respond. Which expires in 1 week, Torres noted. Mom nodded miserably. I knew you'd never seen those boxes carefully. You were always too busy with work, with Emma. I thought if I could just get to them first, find the documents, destroy them, then neither of us could claim the money. The trust would stay in limbo forever. At least it would be fair. Fair? I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly. James tried to pull me back down, but I shook him off. You think destroying my inheritance is fair? You think 32 years of emotional abuse is fair? You don't need the money. Mom shouted back, standing to face me. You have a good job, a house, a daughter who loves you. I have nothing. Do you know what it's like to spend your whole life feeling like an imposter? To know that you were born from violence and shame? That your mother died because of you? Catherine didn't die because of you, I said firmly. She died because Robert Chen was a coward and her father was a monster. You were just a baby. An innocent baby who deserved love and protection, not a lifetime of resentment. Tears were streaming down my mother's face now. I just wanted something that was mine. Something no one could take away or deny. Don't you understand? I needed this. So you hired Carl Winters to break into my home while my 8-year-old daughter was there, I said coldly. You orchestrated that entire dinner to humiliate me and keep me distracted. You spit in my food, Mom. You turned my family against me. And for what? Money you were never legally entitled to? I'm her daughter. Mom screamed. Catherine was my mother. That makes me. Legally, Torres interrupted firmly, you are Lily Sterling's daughter. Your birth certificate says so. The adoption, even though informal, was finalized through that legal document. Catherine Walsh's biological child, according to all legal records, is Lily Sterling's daughter Patricia. That's you. But the trust fund was established for Catherine Walsh's descendants who can prove direct lineage through documented evidence. And Maya has that evidence, Sutton said quietly, finally understanding. The original birth certificate naming Catherine Walsh as the mother. That's what was in the box. I pulled out my phone and showed them a photo I'd taken at my house. The original birth certificate from 1976, showing Catherine Walsh as the mother and Robert Chen as the father, with a baby girl named Patricia Marie. No mention of the Sterlings anywhere. This document was never filed officially, I explained. Grandma Lily kept it hidden when she filed the amended birth certificate listing herself as the mother. This proves the biological connection. And according to the trust's terms, I, as the documented descendant, am the rightful heir. My mother collapsed back into her chair, her face in her hands. I just wanted to matter, she sobbed. I just wanted to be someone's first choice. Just once. For a moment, just a brief, painful moment, I felt sorry for her. This broken woman who'd spent her whole life fighting ghosts and losing. But then I remembered the spit in my food. The applause. Emma's babysitter hearing intruders while my daughter slept downstairs. You mattered to me, I said quietly. I loved you, Mom. Despite everything, I kept trying. But you were so consumed by what you lost that you couldn't see what you had. Torres cleared her throat. Mrs. Chen, given your confession here today, I'm formally arresting you for conspiracy to commit burglary, destruction of property, mail theft, and witness intimidation. Ms. Sutton, your client needs to be processed. As officers came to take my mother away, she looked at me one last time. Will you forgive me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. About all the years of pain, the therapy, the self-doubt she'd planted in me like poison seeds. I don't know, I said honestly. But I do know this, I'm done letting your pain become mine. I'm done being your scapegoat for a tragedy that happened before I was born. And I'm done apologizing for existing. She opened her mouth to respond, but Sutton shook her head firmly. They led her out, her expensive heels clicking against the tile floor one last time. When the door closed, I sat down heavily. James patted my shoulder. You did well. That confession will make the criminal case airtight. Torres approached, holding a business card. This is the contact for Morrison and Hayes, the law firm in Charleston. They've been trying to reach you. I suggest you call them tomorrow. I took the card, staring at the embossed letters. $3 million. Money born from guilt and tragedy, passed down through generations of pain. Detective, I said slowly, what happens now? Now? Torres smiled faintly. Now you go home to your daughter. You process all this. And you decide who you want to be, free from your mother's shadow. As I walked out of the police station with James, the night air felt different. Cleaner somehow. Lighter. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Hoffman. Emma's asleep. Take your time. We're safe. Safe. Such a simple word. Such a precious gift. I looked up at the stars, thinking about Catherine Walsh, the scared 16-year-old girl who died on a highway, never knowing her daughter would spend a lifetime angry, or that her granddaughter would finally break the cycle of pain. I'll do better, I whispered to those distant lights. I promise I'll do better. And for the first time in my life, I believed I actually could. 2 weeks later, I stood in front of Morrison and Hayes' office building in Charleston, Emma's small hand tucked securely in mine. The building was old Southern elegance, red brick with white columns, magnolia trees lining the walkway. It looked like the kind of place where family legacies were managed, where generations of secrets were kept in leather-bound files and mahogany cabinets. "Mommy, why are we here again?" Emma asked, tilting her head up at me with those wide brown eyes that always melted my heart. "We're here to learn about your great-great-grandmother," I told her, squeezing her hand. "And to make some important decisions about our future." Inside, the receptionist led us to a conference room where 2 attorneys waited. Margaret Hayes was in her 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. Her partner, David Morrison, was younger, maybe 45, with the bearing of someone who took his responsibilities seriously. "Ms. Chen," Margaret said warmly, shaking my hand. "We're so glad you finally came. We've been trying to reach you for months." "I know," I said, helping Emma into a chair before sitting down myself. "Things got complicated. We heard about the situation with your mother," David said carefully. "The district attorney's office contacted us for background information on the trust. I hope you know that we had no idea our letters would trigger such a response." "It's not your fault," I assured them. "My mother's choices were her own." Margaret pulled out a thick folder. "Before we discuss the financial details, I want to tell you about Catherine Walsh. We've been managing this trust for 30 years, and we've learned quite a bit about her over that time." She opened the folder and slid several photographs across the table. They showed a young woman with dark hair and a bright smile, standing in front of a church, sitting on a porch swing, holding a baby lamb at what looked like a county fair. Catherine was 16 in these photos, Margaret explained. Her father was Minister Joseph Walsh, a well-known figure in Ashwood. By all accounts, Catherine was bright, creative, and kind. She wanted to be a teacher. Emma leaned forward, studying the photos. "She's pretty." She was, Margaret agreed. And she was also very brave. When she found out she was pregnant, she knew her father would never allow her to keep the baby. So she ran. She survived on her own for 2 months before Lily Sterling found her. David pulled out another document. Robert Chen, Catherine's, the baby's father, was a complicated man. He was 42 when he met Catherine. She was helping with the church youth program, and he was in town on business. What happened between them was not appropriate, given the age difference and power dynamic. "It was abuse," I said flatly. "He took advantage of a teenage girl." "Yes," David said simply. "And he knew it." When Catherine's father confronted him, Chen paid him off and denied everything publicly. But privately, he carried the guilt. In 1994, when he was dying of cancer, he established this trust through our firm. He left instructions that we were to find Catherine Walsh's biological descendants and ensure they received the inheritance he couldn't give her in life. Margaret pulled out a legal document. The trust was initially funded with $1 million. Over 30 years of careful investment, it's grown to $3.2 million. But there's more. She slid over another paper. Robert Chen also left a letter. It was sealed, with instructions that it be given to Catherine's descendant when they were found. It's addressed to the grandchild I'll never meet. My hands trembled as I picked up the aged envelope. Emma watched me with curious eyes. "Can I read it now?" I asked. "It's yours," Margaret said gently. "Everything here is yours." I broke the seal carefully and unfolded the letter. The handwriting was shaky, the writing of a dying man. "To my grandchild, I am writing this knowing I will never have the courage to make things right while I'm alive. I was a coward who let a young girl die because I was too concerned with my reputation, my marriage, my comfortable life. Catherine Walsh deserved better than me. My daughter, your mother, deserved better than me. And you deserve better than a grandfather who chose silence over justice. I cannot undo the harm I caused. I cannot bring Catherine back. I cannot give your mother the father she needed. But I can do this one small thing: ensure that Catherine's legacy continues through you. This money isn't payment for my sins, nothing could pay for that. It's an acknowledgement that Catherine's life mattered, that her child mattered, that you matter. I hope you use this gift to build something beautiful. Something that would have made Catherine proud. I hope you break the cycles of shame and silence that destroyed so many lives. And I hope, someday, you can forgive the weakness of a man who knew better but didn't do better. You are the future Catherine never got to see. Make it count. Robert Chen. I set the letter down, tears streaming down my face. Emma climbed into my lap, wrapping her small arms around me. Is it sad? She whispered. It's sad and hopeful at the same time, I told her, kissing the top of her head. David cleared his throat gently. Ms. Chen, the trust funds are available to you immediately. However, we do need to discuss the legal proceedings regarding your mother's claim. She doesn't have one, I said firmly. The documents prove that. She was legally adopted by Lily Sterling. The trust specifies biological descendants of Catherine Walsh with documented proof. I have that proof. She doesn't. That's correct, Margaret confirmed. Your mother's attorney has already withdrawn her claim. Given her current legal troubles, she's not in a position to contest anything. I thought about my mother, sitting in a jail cell awaiting trial. My father had called twice, both times asking me to drop the charges, to think about the family. I'd blocked his number after the second call. What about the criminal case? I asked. I heard Carl Winters took a plea deal. He did, David confirmed. In exchange for testimony against your mother. He's cooperating fully with the district attorney. Margaret leaned forward, her expression sympathetic. Maya, I know this has been traumatic. Take all the time you need to decide what to do with the inheritance. There's no rush. But I'd already been thinking about it. For 2 weeks, lying awake at night while Emma slept peacefully in the next room, I'd been planning. I know what I want to do, I said. I want to set up a foundation. The Catherine Walsh Foundation for Young Mothers. It will provide housing, education, and support for pregnant teenagers who need help. Girls like Catherine, who are scared and alone and need someone to believe in them. Margaret's face broke into a wide smile. That's beautiful. I want to use 1 million for the foundation, I continued, the plan solidifying as I spoke. Another 1 million goes into a trust for Emma's education and future. And the remaining 1.2 million. I want to donate half to organizations that support domestic violence survivors and keep the other half as a safety net for Emma and me. David was already taking notes. We can help you establish the foundation. It would be our honor. There's one more thing, I said. I want to find Catherine's grave. I want to make sure she has a proper headstone, something that tells her story with dignity. And I want to visit her, to tell her that her great-granddaughter will grow up knowing her name, knowing what she sacrificed. Margaret's eyes were wet. Catherine is buried in Ashwood Cemetery, under a small marker that just says, beloved daughter. Her father wouldn't even put her full name on it. That changes now, I said firmly. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, I stood in Ashwood Cemetery with Emma, Detective Torres, and a small group of people I'd invited. Margaret and David were there, along with Mrs. Hoffman, who'd become more than just a babysitter, she was family now. My friend Jenna from work stood beside her husband. And James Kirkland, who'd helped me navigate the legal maze of the past months, stood respectfully in the back. The new headstone was simple but dignified, Catherine Marie Walsh, 1960 to 1976. Beloved mother. Brave spirit. Her legacy lives on. Below that, I'd added a quote from Maya Angelou: "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you." Catherine's story is told now, I said to the small gathering. Not as a cautionary tale or a source of shame, but as a reminder of why we fight for vulnerable young people. Why we believe them. Why we protect them. Emma placed a bouquet of wildflowers on the grave. "Great-great-grandma Catherine," she said solemnly, "thank you for being brave." Detective Torres approached as the group began to disperse. "I wanted to update you on your mother's case. She accepted a plea deal yesterday. 3 years in prison, 2 years probation." I nodded, feeling surprisingly little emotion about it. "And my father?" "He wasn't charged. There's no evidence he was involved in the break-in or knew about the plan." Torres paused. "He did send you this, though." She handed me a letter. I opened it right there, needing to know. "Maya, I know I failed you. I spent our marriage letting your mother's pain control our family. I enabled her worst impulses because it was easier than standing up to her. You deserved a father who protected you, not one who stood by silently. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm getting help. Therapy. I'm trying to understand how I became someone who could watch his daughter be destroyed and do nothing. Your father, Richard." I folded the letter carefully and put it in my pocket. Tell him I'm not ready yet. But maybe someday." Torres nodded understandingly. "That's fair. And Maya? I'm proud of you. What you're doing with the foundation, Catherine would be proud too." That evening, I sat in my home office, looking at the plans for the Catherine Walsh Foundation. We'd already secured a building in Clearwater, a beautiful old Victorian house that would provide temporary housing for up to 6 young mothers at a time. The foundation would cover their living expenses, provide educational support, help them access medical care, and connect them with resources for themselves and their babies. The first resident would move in next month. Her name was Sophie. She was 17, pregnant, and had been kicked out by her family. When I interviewed her, she reminded me so much of Catherine, scared but determined, alone but hopeful. "You're not alone anymore," I'd told her. "We've got you." Emma appeared in the doorway, holding her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Mommy, can we video chat with Grandma Lily?" I smiled. Emma had started calling Catherine Grandma Catherine and Lily Sterling Grandma Lily after I'd explained our complicated family tree. She'd taken to talking to their photos, telling them about her day as if they could hear her. "Sure, baby," I said, pulling her into my lap. We FaceTimed my phone toward the framed photo of Lily Sterling I'd placed on my desk, the one where she was young and smiling, holding a baby Patricia. "Hi, Grandma Lily," Emma said cheerfully. "Mommy says you were very brave to keep the truth safe for her. Thank you for that. We're going to help lots of people now because of what you did." I hugged Emma tighter, looking at Grandma Lily's face. She'd carried such heavy secrets, made such complicated choices. She wasn't perfect, she'd lied, hidden the truth, enabled some of my mother's worst behaviors. But in the end, she'd tried to make it right. "Thank you," I whispered to the photo. "For trusting me with the truth. For believing I was strong enough to handle it." My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret Hayes. "Foundation paperwork is filed. The Catherine Walsh Foundation is officially established. Congratulations, Maya. You're changing lives." I looked around my office, at the plans spread across my desk, at Emma chattering to old photographs, at the life I was building from the ashes of family trauma and buried secrets. The Sunday dinner at the Riverside Inn felt like a lifetime ago. The spit in my food, the applause, the humiliation, it had all been designed to break me. To keep me small and manageable and compliant. Instead, it had freed me. My mother had spent her whole life fighting for something she thought would make her whole. Chasing Robert Chen's acknowledgement, Lily Sterling's validation, the trust fund's promise of worth. She believed that money, status, or public recognition would fill the void Catherine's death had left in her. But I'd learned a different lesson. Wholeness didn't come from inheritance or revenge or public vindication. It came from choosing to break cycles instead of perpetuating them. From turning pain into purpose. From protecting the next generation instead of using them as pawns. "Mommy," Emma said, pulling me from my thoughts. "Can we have pancakes for dinner?" I laughed, the sound surprising and genuine. "Absolutely. Extra chocolate chips?" "Always," she grinned. As we headed to the kitchen, I glanced back at my office one more time. At the photos of Catherine and Lily. At the foundation plans. At the evidence of a future built on truth instead of secrets. Tomorrow, I'd have my first board meeting for the foundation. Next week, Sophie would move into our first housing unit. Next month, Emma would start a new art class she'd been excited about. Next year, who knew what possibilities would unfold? But tonight, we'd make pancakes. We'd laugh. We'd be safe and warm and loved. And that, I realized as Emma measured out chocolate chips with intense concentration, was the inheritance that mattered most. Not Robert Chen's guilty money or Patricia's desperate grasping or Lily's protective lies. The real inheritance was the choice to love better, do better, be better. The choice to finally break free. "Ready, Mommy?" Emma asked, holding up the mixing bowl. "Ready," I said, meaning so much more than pancakes. And we began. Coming up next, you'll see 2 more stories we handpicked just for you. If this one struck a chord, you're going to love what's next. Tap to keep the journey going.